Let's look at Quantum Christian with Powerful Living and New Up the Mind. And that's recorded in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2.
I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
Paul writes, I encourage you or I exhort you. I call you beside me as a concerned father or mother would call or invite their children close to them, under their arms so as to help them to do what is right in the walk or behavior category. I encourage you, brothers. Paul calls all the Christians, holy people, brothers, because we are brothers in the Spirit category. All of us have received the same gift of Holy Spirit, and we are therefore all children of God our Father. I encourage you, brothers, by means of the pities of God. It's through God's tender feeling of unhappiness or distress on seeing the ills being experienced by any of us. To do what? I encourage you, brothers, by means of the pities of God, to present your bodies, to cause your bodies to stand beside or near by God. That's what you're doing. We're presenting ourselves to God as a living sacrifice, alive, not dead, but as one united sacrifice and service, now living. Because we, all Christians, have received the same Spirit within us as Christ received when God raised him up alive from death, accepting his sacrifice of himself. Paul says, I encourage you, brothers, by means of the pities of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy. Holy means sanctified, separated, set apart from the state of being common, defiled, or unclean against God. We are holy. We now correspond to the essence of God. And we are to present our bodies a living sacrifice, well pleasing, or goodly, agreeable, acceptable, and gratifying to, for, or with God. And doing that is our logical rendering of service. It's our performance of service to and for God that pertains to reason, the correct calculation of service. And Paul says, you must not outwardly configure yourselves or cause your external figure, your outward shape, your schema, including your demeanor, your deportment, your expressed personality in the walk or behavior category. Don't what? Do not outwardly configure yourselves together with this age. That means in conjunction with the present time during which we are currently living in, during the everyday living of our lives. But what are we to do, Christians? You must transform yourselves. Continue changing your form, all of your being. It's like metamorphosis. Your whole form, not just your outward appearance. You must transform yourselves. How? By the newing up of the mind, the newness in an upward motion, the newing upwards that is available to the mind. Our mindset, the organ of mental perception, our mentality, for the purpose of you proving. We do this to prove, and that's like putting to the test or proving by examination and thus approving what the intention of God is. God's will, his active volition and desire during the everyday living of our lives. And what is the intention of God? It is good. God's will is good, good from God's viewpoint. And God is the one who issues his goodness. And he sets the standard of or for what is good to be conformed to by others or by us. So God's will is good and it is well-pleasing. There's that word again, well-pleasing, goodly, agreeable, acceptable, and gratifying, and complete. It is perfect or complete. It has arrived at the ultimate state of completeness. It has reached God's fulfilling ending issue, and that is God's intention. So, we already had a mind before we received the gift of Holy Spirit. But now, in addition, we have available the mind of our Holy Spirit life, which is the Spirit of Christ in us. You have the mind of Christ in the Spirit category. This is newly made and different to what you had before you had Holy Spirit. So in this context, the word newing up, I think King James says renewing, but it really means to newing upwards. The word newing up is a noun referring to the new communication emanating from your Holy Spirit to your mind. That's how you new upwards. The information is new compared to what was previously in effect, to what was available to or in our mindset formula. The spiritual communication is the action and process that replaces our old flesh-oriented mentality.